The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly podcast here, coming to you on April 27th, 2020. This is my last week in my 30s. I hit 40 on this coming Friday, but enough of that. We'll talk about that when the time comes. To kind of just jumped in here in my office to record this. I don't know how long it's going to go. This might go 10 minutes. It might go 20 minutes. Could go 40. We'll see. I did promise my wife to make some Brinner. Brinner is actually breakfast for dinner for tonight, so I'm going to try to get down there and we can binge watch the rest of The Office, season 9, as I'm on there now. But I wanted to talk to you guys. I want to talk here a little bit about The Last Dance, episodes. Sorry, let me slow down there real quick. Episodes 3 and 4 came out last night on ESPN. To me, so far, the best episodes of the first 4. It's still 6 more to go. Then drop 2 more this next Sunday, and then 2 more after that, and 2 after that. And I love this episode, especially 3, because it covered pretty much my favorite era of Michael Jordan's career, the most interesting part of Michael Jordan's career in the NBA. And that was when he was, battling with the Pistons, the bad boy Pistons in the late 80s, early 90s, getting over the hump. The NBA, as it goes, always, it's when you get to the top, it's always you have to overcome something. Every star, I would say, I don't think Magic and Bird are the exception because they won pretty early. Magic won his rookie year, Bird won his second year in the league. But every star, for the most part, LeBron, I say Kobe to the extent. No, maybe Shaq definitely went through a lot, to get to over the top. But many stars had to go through a journey to get over the hump. For Michael Jordan, that was the Detroit Pistons, who themselves had to go through Boston to get over the hump to win titles. Boston and LA, to be honest with you, because LA, they lost LA in '88 in the '88 finals. But it's my favorite. It's my most fascinating part of Jordan's career because that is actually the most vulnerable. Because Jordan, at that point, you can argue in 1988, 89, 90, pre-rings, that Jordan may have already been the best player in the NBA. He was certainly the most exciting player in the NBA at the time. But you could make an argument that he was the best player in the NBA at that point. Bird at that point, he started his back issues. Magic was still great, obviously, but again, Magic could have been 1A, 1B, whatever. I'm not going to argue those merits there. But Jordan was arguably the best player in the NBA at that point. He was basically LeBron before the rings, right before the rings. But it's fascinating because of the narratives. Because Jordan loses to the Pistons actually 3 times. They say twice in the conference finals, which is true, but people forget also he lost in the '88 playoffs against the Pistons, also in the first round, I believe, in 5 games. Now, granted, Detroit was a much better team. The Bulls were still young, but Jordan did lose to the Pistons 3 times in a row, actually. So people that gets remiss, but the last 2, 89 and 90, when the Bulls were in the conference finals, it's a lot more focused because of the Bulls being at the level of Detroit at that point. And the characters of it, obviously the way the film was being shown, the documentary being shown, is like they're chronicalizing the 98 season, obviously. But what they're doing, they're going back into, depending on the subject they want to cover, versus Pippen or versus Dennis Rodman, Phil Jackson. They go back, give them the history of the person, and then the relevance of what the story means to the main part of the story, which is the 98 team of The Last Dance, the final season of the Bulls, on the road to winning the sixth championship in the second three-peat. And obviously, episode 3 focused on Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman, obviously, 1990s pop culture icon, but also Dennis Rodman, a phenomenal basketball mind. And I think we, lost in the whole thing with his, doing his hair and wearing all these nose rings and the wedding dress and all that. The eccentricities obviously was a big deal. And by the way, folks, kids who don't really understand just how big Dennis Rodman was in terms of what he was doing back in the 90s. This documentary is going to pretty much give you an idea what it is. But he was huge. He was take away all the issues, he was the best defensive player in basketball at the time. And actually, to be honest, in Detroit, because the story really starts in Detroit. Because, as you remember, Detroit, Rodman being part of the Pistons in the late 80s, early 90s, and being part of those two championship teams in 89-90, and being the antithesis of, what became to be later on, in his San Antonio and Chicago career, quote unquote problematic, whatever you want to call it, but he was the best defensive player in basketball at the time. He won, I believe, definitely won the award in 1990, but you can see early on some of what made him special. And, I'm really surprised, I'm happy that, that they didn't really go into detail into his life. There's actually a documentary already on the ESPN Plus 30 for 30 library, a documentary focused on Dennis Rodman, which I would encourage people to watch. For last week, I wrote about that on the blog last week, and I did it again this week as well too. That you should check it out because it gives you more detail. This is a little more of a fast track. What they did this time around, episode 3, was a fast track into Rodman's life, quickly into his career in Detroit. And then, the struggle to go to San Antonio, then the struggle to go to Chicago, and all that. It's more fast track. But there's a lot more meat on the actual Rodman documentary, as you see. You check it out on the 30 for 30 ESPN library. But they actually did him a service, actually. They didn't really, knock him as bad as I thought it did. Obviously, the whole thing with him going to Vegas for the couple of days off he needed, and this is where I think also for me, I'm starting to maybe change my stance on Phil Jackson. Now, you guys have been knowing me for the last couple of years, last 8 years maybe, ever since I started this podcast. It's 9 years running now, thank God. I'm happy for that. I've been saying that Phil Jackson might be slightly overrated as a head coach. And I'm not saying he's not good. I mean, certainly the guy has won, 11 championships throughout his Chicago career, 6 in Chicago, 5 in LA. Navigating egos and whatnot. But it's simple to just say that as a hot take and a talking point. And I'm not saying I didn't believe that. I didn't believe what I was saying, because I certainly did believe what I was saying. But at the same time, I thought that having Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, and then having Kobe and Shaq and Paul Gasol, obviously you have a roster that's you have the best collective talent in the league at the time. But what I didn't account for was just how tough it is to manage those egos, especially the 90s Bulls teams, where you have Michael Jordan, the best player on the planet in all sports, Scottie Pippen, who is going through a contract dispute, who's not happy because he's not getting paid, and then meanwhile pissed off at Jerry Krause. You see what's going on there. Dennis Rodman and his issues and his eccentricities, and having to manage that and still be able to keep that team relatively sane and still winning titles at a big pace. That is tough. And I think watching this documentary really has really allowed me to actually appreciate Phil Jackson more than I ever have. Obviously, Phil Jackson in recent years, being the president of the New York Knicks and him failing there, a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's just not interested. He was collecting a paycheck. I've been critical of Phil Jackson in recent years with that. But the overall spectrum of who he was at the peak of his powers, from 1990 to 2010-11 with the Lakers, I don't think there's a question that Phil Jackson is probably the best coach maybe in all sports from that time frame. I mean, the only guy I can really think of that's come close to him really is Bill Belichick, with the New England Patriots. And obviously Popovich is still in the conversation, but I think I might have to rescind that a little bit now. I think if you go 1A, 1B with Phil and Pop, maybe, but I mean, what Pop's done in San Antonio for as long as he has, it's been amazing. But managing those egos is just as tough. It's just as hard, and I don't know how Phil did it. I mean, honestly, and having a sense of mind to allowing Rodman to go to Vegas for 48 hours, just to get his mind off of basketball, allow him to his mental state to, any other coach wouldn't allow that. I'm sure as hell Pat Riley wouldn't allow that to happen. So Phil Jackson be able to trust his player, and Dennis Rodman, who, let's be real, Could you really trust him? I don't know, but he allowed him to go to Vegas for 48 hours, actually longer. He ended up, according to Jordan in the documentary, he didn't get back till 3 days after. But Phil being able to understand and to do that, and have the right sense to allow him to just blow shit off, just kind of get, do what he has to do, and it worked wonders. Dennis Rodman still stayed engaged, when he got back. I mean, he's a key point of why they won titles. People say, well, there's a quote, obviously, with Rodman saying that he doesn't think that they would have won without him. And I agree with him, because one of the things we go back to, in '95 when Jordan came back from baseball, when he lost Orlando in the second round. The reason, I've said for years, the reason why they lost the second round of the playoffs against Orlando was because they were thin up in the front court. Horace Grant, for the first 3 title teams, was so important for that team. Horace Grant left after the '94 season to Orlando, and they were thin in the front court. So, essentially getting Dennis Rodman in there, obviously, fix that problem. And Dennis Rodman, obviously, is a much better rebounder. I'm not saying much, because Dennis Rodman is probably the greatest rebounder in the history of basketball than Horace Grant was. That's not to take away from Horace Grant what he did in Chicago, because he was huge and he was important to what that team did. But at the same time, the fact of the matter is that when the Bulls didn't have a guy in the middle, a power forward like a Horace Grant there in '95, they didn't win. They lost to Orlando in 6, and the big reason was because they didn't have any muscle in the front court. You get Robin next year, you retool that team right next year, and they sweep the Magic in the East Conference Finals in '96. Just that simple. So he was, for Phil to actually have this right sense of mind to allow him to do that, I think it speaks to how much he understands how to navigate egos, and that's very important. That's tough. Not every coach can do that or wants to do that, but he did it. So episode 3 and 4, I think, was obviously the most impactful of the two. I feel like I learned more on these episodes, because 1 and 2, for the most part, learning about Michael Jordan. I'm a basketball nutcase. So I know pretty much all the ins and outs of Michael Jordan. Story wise, the Pippen stuff about his contract, that's not a surprise. I was watching that stuff in real time, and I heard about it, obviously. So maybe some of the details in it maybe be a little surprising. By the way, watching this documentary, the most really interesting person in this documentary to me is not even Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, or Scottie Pippen, or Phil Jackson. It's actually Jerry Krause, the GM. And I say that because Jerry Krause, obviously, he's mainly responsible for the team falling apart in '98 after they won the title. Whatever reason it may be, not allowing Phil to come back, and if Phil doesn't come back, obviously Jordan doesn't come back. So it's definitely, Jerry Krause to me is the most interesting person of the entire documentary. Let me see here. Also, I have notes here I want to discuss here about the yeah. So and with Jerry Krause too. You can love him or hate him how he handled the situation with the Bulls and whatnot, but Jerry Krause made the right decisions for that team. Jerry Krause drafted Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant. Jerry Krause had the right sense of mind, even if Michael Jordan didn't agree with it at the time, to fire Doug Collins after the '89 season. Okay, and bring Phil Jackson to head coach. Jordan at the time. Jordan didn't like the move. He hated the move because him and Doug Collins were close. So he made the ballsy moves. Now Jerry Krause gets criticism for acting like a buffoon in '98. How he handled the situation. Obviously the players were very vocal making fun of him. Of course, which I don't understand why he was going on a team bus to begin with. His ego got in the way, obviously, but I think there was truth what he said to some degree. It goes in concert. Like the Patriots are great for a long time because of not just Tom Brady and mainly Tom Brady and on the field, but the front office has to work in concert too with that as well. Coaching staff or it may be. And the Bulls could be argued the same thing with the Bulls. Now, obviously Michael Jordan takes lots out of the room because Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, the greatest player of all time. But Jerry Krause should get credit. Obviously he didn't feel like he was getting enough credit, which that's just that's a personal thing. But Jerry Krause, could be argued as one of the greatest executives in the history of the game, considering what he did that elevated this franchise to 6 championships in the 90s. Well, the takeaways from this documentary, the stuff with Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons, obviously there's a lot of focus on the bad boys, Pistons and whatnot. A lot of my Michael Jordan hatred, and I think the majority of it really stems from the Isaiah stuff. And I'm not saying Isaiah Thomas was not an asshole. Isaiah Thomas was an asshole. Isaiah Thomas freezing him out in an 85 All-Star game, obviously, it's a big deal. It shouldn't be ignored. But there's no question that Isaiah Thomas, regardless how he acted after the 91 conference finals when he didn't agree to shake hands with the Bulls and Jordan and all that. And by the way, it was petty on his part. Regardless what he says about how Boston taught him that, and different situation though. You could have just said hi, acknowledge Jordan and the Bulls and move on. And he acknowledges that too. But calling spade for spade here, Isaiah Thomas should be on the Dream Team. Isaiah Thomas prior to that Dream Team '92, in that 10-year run, 12-year run, Isaiah Thomas was a top 5 player in the league for a good portion of that. You talk about Jordan, Bird, Magic. Isaiah's right there. He won 2 titles. He beat Jordan, Bird, and Magic to win those titles. And I'm bitter because obviously it's been reported for years, and I think Pippen confirmed that on a documentary. Scottie Pippen confirmed that there was no way Michael Jordan was not going to go on the Dream Team if Isaiah was there. Like at the time, Michael Jordan was undecided about joining that '92 Olympic team, and he said he would go on that team as long as Isaiah was not on that team, and and so history goes. So Isaiah got screwed. You know what I mean? How the fuck do you have Christian Laettner ahead of Isaiah Thomas on that team? It makes no sense to me at all. Now I will say this though on Michael Jordan's part, real quick before we go, that it is cool to see Michael Jordan being more authentic and honest. This is the most honest and authentic I've seen Michael Jordan in my entire life. There was no social media There's no social media back when he was in his heyday. So Michael Jordan was able to escape, have the privacy, have the detachment. When I said about Kobe Bryant and his passing, the reason why Kobe Bryant felt real to me in a way that Michael Jordan wasn't, was because there was more of an attachment of Kobe Bryant because of social media on Kobe's last half of his career anyway. Michael Jordan was able to escape a lot of stuff because of not having the access to him. Michael Jordan came off as a really nice guy in the public and very decent and all that. I'm not saying he's not a decent guy, but Michael Jordan was a lot more rougher than people give him credit for. And Michael Jordan is, for the first time, is acknowledging that. Look at the documentary. He's f-bombing left and right, which I have a problem with. By the way, I like the fact that he's doing that because it's allowing true honesty on this entire project. But yeah, I that's the one thing I will say about Michael Jordan. I do respect with him now, is that he feels more honest to me. He feels more open with his life. He wasn't that way back when. Michael Jordan was so crafty with his image back in the 90s. His whole Republicans buy sneakers too. When people criticize him about him not being outspoken about certain things within the community, whatever it may be. Michael Jordan, Republicans buy sneakers too. It is what it is. But seeing him be a little more vocal now and being more honest and seeing that side of Jordan that we didn't see in the 90s, that's cool. And I actually respect that, So, let me see anything else on here, because I'm going to get out of here a little bit, because I'm going to make some breakfast for dinner for my wife. Carmel Electra still looks gorgeous. 48 years old. Looks like it's like 35. Let me see. Yeah. By the way, the Bulls beating the Lakers in the 91 finals. Worth noting. Part of the reason why Magic Johnson's my top 3 all time is that loss, that was Magic Johnson's 9th appearance in the finals in 12 years. And he won 5 of those. And by the way, those 4 losses he had is impressive, because look at the teams he lost to in those finals. Teams you can arguably say top 10 teams in the history of the game. 83 Sixers was arguably top 2 or 3 team, in my opinion, in the history of the game. You have Who else lost to? 84 Celtics was really, really good. 89 Pistons was one of the top 5 teams in history of the game, in my opinion, by Isaiah. And then the 91 Bulls with Jordan. You know how good they are. So, this is worth noting that Magic Johnson, 5-4 in the finals, but geez, making the 9 finals in 12 years, that's pretty sick. And that 91 team shouldn't have been there in the first place, to be honest with you. The 91 team was actually not even favored to go to the finals. That was Portland's year to win it all, to be honest with you. So, but, okay, I'll leave it for now. I want to talk more about other things outside of The Last Dance, but I think for now I'll just leave it here. Maybe do a little podcast tomorrow, maybe on Wednesday, I don't know. Yeah, turning 40 in a few days, so a lot of stuff going on here in the Christian household, although we're still quarantined and locked down. Although the news is today that they're starting to reopen some parks and some community pools starting this week. So I don't know. I honestly have certain opinions about that. I'm not strong either way on opinions, because I think we need to hopefully start normalizing to some extent some of our life now, because while we do need lockdown and contain this virus, I do fear that there's a lot of people who may die from this poverty alone, because they have to work and vice versa, whatever it may be. So, anyway, that's good for now. Again, I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7. Check out the website. I'm starting to write more again at earnestchristian.com. And maybe do the pod tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Okay? So that's later. Love you guys. God bless y'all. And until next one. Later.